The first chapter and the first line is, if you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage.
100%, because you become commoditized.
It's being naturally curious and genuinely interested. You don't spend any time on what is it you actually say when you get the appointment. There is nothing like a third person endorsement story.
Here's my question for each of you today. So if you're driving down the road and you're listening to me, if you're at the gym right now on your phone, if you're in an office building, just sitting there, hanging out, if you're watching Netflix, whatever you're doing, here's my question that I want you to think about today. Have you ever wondered what it seriously takes to be a top 1% salesperson in your industry? You know, the ones who make all the money, who seem to get all the promotions they ever want to get and have all the respect of everyone in the office and everyone in the company and win all of the awards. My next guest, Patricia Fripp, is going to answer that question for you. And let me give you a small taste of her background. You see, Patricia, companies of all sizes, you're talking large enterprise, Fortune 500 companies, all the way down to smaller companies that might have a few salespeople, hire her to help them drive more sales by improving their important conversations and sales presentations. She is a true presentation skills expert. She's also, I want you to write this down, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. That is not easy to do, who was the first woman to be elected as the president of the National Speakers Association, the NSA. If you're familiar with that organization, just wow, oh wow, Patricia, well done. Meetings and Conventions magazine named her one of the 10 most electrifying speakers in all of North America. Kiplinger's Personal Finance magazine says one of the best ways to invest in your career is to learn presentation skills from Patricia Fripp. In 2019, she was also named one of the top 30 global gurus and one of the top 25 women in sales, period, worldwide. Patricia now is virtually everywhere with her interactive web-based training, Fripp VT, that stands for virtual training, powerful, persuasive presentations. And let me tell you, she started with nothing. A woman who at the age of 15 began her career as a hairstylist. How did she get to where she's at now? And arrived in America at 20 with no job, no connections, no silver spoon, somebody just giving her a bunch of money. She had $500 to her name. Please welcome to the show, Patricia Fripp. Patricia, how are you?
I am so good you would find it difficult to believe.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, if I could be a third of good is that good, I would be amazingly good. So I'm excited to have you on the show. And here's the thing with me, like my background is human behavioral and human psychology. So I love interviewing guests that really understand that, because there's not a lot of people out there, even so-called sales and persuasion gurus. Most of them don't understand that I've found, compared to what you understand that. How does that help? How does human behavior apply to being the best at sales? So I'm pumped to have you on the show today. So here's what I want to do. I want to dive right into your story, and because you've got quite an awesome story, and give our listeners really a feel for that background and how you arrived at this point as one of the most elite authorities in the entire world, not just San Francisco, but worldwide on sales and persuasion. Here's my question. Here's what I've heard. I did a little research on you. I hear in your last career, you were San Francisco's #1 men's hairstylist at a time when that was a new industry. Now, I'm trying to transition. You're a Hall of Fame speaker now who's delivered more than 3,500 presentations all across the globe on 5 different continents. I have to find out which ones you didn't. There's a huge difference between those two careers. How did that all go down?
When the 60 Minutes was at the National Speakers Association convention for 5 days in 2000, they asked me that question. Used to be a hairstylist, now you're a speaker, got to be a big difference.
Yeah.
My answer was, as a hairstylist, I worked on the inside of people's heads. Now, as a motivational speaker, I work on the outside. There's only half an inch difference. Now, that line got me on 60 Minutes because they were interviewing dozens of people, Jeremy, and I knew if I have any chance of not being on the cutting room floor, I have to be short. It's almost long before Twitter was invented.
Yeah.
I knew we needed a tweet size quote.
Sure.
And so that line got me on 60 Minutes, that half inch has made me.
Can you repeat that to our audience? I want to repeat that because I think that just me hearing that, when I watched your interview on 60 Minutes, and it was quick. Like I watched the video clip and it said like 17 seconds. And I'm like, before I even pressed play, I'm like, 17 seconds. Okay. Hit play. And you said that and I'm like, whoa, mind blown. In less than 17 seconds. Tell us that again.
I used to work on the outside of people's heads. Now, as a motivational speaker, I work on the inside of people's heads. That's only half an inch difference.
Mind blown.
That line got me on 60 Minutes. That half inch has made me millions of dollars.
Wow.
Not all in the same year.
That is incredible. So tell us a little bit more of your background, though. Like, how did you go from being a hairstylist with really nothing, just over here in the country, had nothing, no silver spoon, nobody gave you anything. How did you get from that point to being the president of like the NSA? Because that's not an easy thing to do.
Well, the simple answer is, as a young woman, I learned good work habits and how to take advantage of opportunity. So, for example, I grew up in England, Jeremy, at a time that nobody expected much of girls. I mean, that was true. We lived in a small town. There were no business women. And I had a brother who's 1 year, 1 month, 2 days, 12 and a half hours younger than I am.
Yeah.
He grew up to be, according to Rolling Stone magazine, the 42nd best guitarist in the history of the world, living or dead.
Okay.
His name is Robert Fripp. He has a band, King Crimson. He played on David Bowie's Heroes.
Sure.
But anyway, my brother was always top of the class.
Right.
And I realized, I'm not as smart as my brother. I'm probably not as smart as the other kids in my class.
Sure.
So I never missed school. I received 100% attendance certificates for years. Yeah. Never won anything else, but they knew I turned up. Yeah. But that developed a superb, good work habit. You don't have to be the best, you just have to work harder. Sure. And I realized fairly young, I am more artistic than academic. Yeah. And so when I was 15, I became a hairstyling apprentice. My father paid $250 for me to work for $4.50 a week. But what that did, Jeremy, was got me on the track of, not only was I good at the job, I had a personality that suited it. And it gave me access to develop relationships with people I would never meet socially. They were rich, and these were women in these days, but they were movers and shakers in their own way. Sure. And I used to say to them, what were you doing when you were my age? How did you make your money? Yeah. Did you make it yourself or did you marry it? Yeah. Good market research. Right. And my brother always says, sister, you ask people such personal questions. Sure. And I always said, well, if you're genuinely interested, people like talking about themselves. Yeah. So then I realized, I was doing very well in my job, but I had the idea in the back of my mind to go to America. So I arrived 20, no job, nowhere to live, $500. Sure. And I got a job in the Mark Hopkins Hotel in the beauty salon, worked with people all over the country, all over the world. And then when I was 23, I got hired, it's a long story, but I talked myself into getting hired at what was the first fancy men's hairstyling salon in San Francisco that was soon taken over by, and you're too young to remember, however, by Jay Sebring, who was the Hollywood hairstylist.
I got you.
At our opening party. Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward, Warren Beatty, Julie Christie came to our opening party. And Jay was murdered a few months later by the Manson family.
Wow, that's great.
So then what happened, I didn't realize, but I became the star of the salon. I was on the radio shows, television shows, written up in all the local press because it was a new industry and there weren't many women.
Sure.
I went into business for myself when I was 30. And I was solidly booked with all the movers and shakers from the financial district, and started traveling nationwide for hair product companies, speaking. All my clients were saying, well, if you're speaking, giving seminars, you should come talk to my Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club. And then with my pals at Dale Carnegie, we went every seminar, every rally. I heard about the National Speakers Association. I turned up at 32 thinking no one's going to want to talk to me. I only talk to Rotary clubs and hairstylists. And two situations appeared. Yeah. One, I realized I could do this in the future.
Sure.
I was 2 years into a 10-year lease and I loved the business, but I knew there would be a time that I would have another business.
Yeah.
And then I also got discovered by a big time promoter who booked me to speak to 2,000 people on the same program with some of the bigger name speakers at the time.
Sure.
So that was the beginning.
You said something that really is intriguing to me that I picked up from listening to you there. In the very beginning, you asked women who you were cutting their hair, you asked them questions.
Yeah.
And you ask them the right questions that cause them to be curious to want to engage with you and have that conversation. And I think that's so important for salespeople out there is you were asking them questions, focusing on them and their situation and how they arrived at this or how they got to where they're at, instead of most hairstylists might focus on themselves and their own problems and their own challenges. And because you asked those questions at the right time in the conversation and you listened and you focused on them, that opened up the whole world to you. So I hope as you're listening to Patricia here that you understand that questions are the very key, and not just any questions, not just, a lot of salespeople, when they're in a sales call, they ask what I call consultative sellings, which have been around for a long time. Like, oh, Mr. Jones, can you tell me what's keeping you awake at night? It's so cliche. It's just so surface level question that you don't get a very good response because they don't want to engage with you. You ask them questions to actually show interest in them and what they're looking for. And that opened all of your opportunities for you. You see that?
Yes. And of course, when I was in the men's hairstyling business, I said to my staff once, you're interesting women. Why do you talk such a load of drivel when you have the most brilliant minds in the city sitting in your chair? Because I used to say, what made you the top salesperson in your company? Yeah. What did your little company do that a big company want to pay you billions of dollars for it? So when I talk about taking advantage of opportunity, often, Jeremy, earlier in my speaking career, people would say, where did you get your MBA? Where did you get your degree in behavioral psychology? I used to say 24 years behind a hairstyling chair.
It's very true.
But that was it. It was asking questions. And whether you're in sales or any other profession, to be perceived as interesting.
Yeah. Well,
you have to be interested, Ted.
Questions help you, the salesperson, build trust and build credibility. And especially in our day, 2020, you're talking to prospects that are the most skeptical and cautious that they've ever been because of the power of technology. Because when somebody wakes up every day, they're constantly being sold to 365 days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They wake up, their phone goes off and they get on their Facebook, and somebody's trying to sell them their MLM, or, maybe they go out and they get coffee and they turn on the TV and there's commercials trying to sell them something. They get in the car, they turn on the radio, they're trying to sell them something. They're driving down the road, they see billboards trying to sell them something. They're constantly being sold to all of the time. So you as a salesperson, if you act or smell or anything like they feel from a traditional salesperson would, they're automatically putting up their walls of defense, and you're trying to compete with that. So you have to learn as a salesperson, like you said, you have to learn skills that focus on them. You're learning skills that work with human behavior rather than using techniques that work against human behavior. It's a massive difference if you want to go from just being an average salesperson to the very best in your field, 100%. I picked up on that from you very quickly. Good job.
I say in Fripp VT, in my superstar sales presentation course, the first chapter and the first line is, if you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage.
100%, because you become commoditized.
And I work on one premise.
Yeah.
And this is what I teach my clients is, let's work on the principle that everyone is more interested in themselves than they are in you.
100%.
That means you have to speak from their point of view. And as you go through your presentation, and I recommend clients is one, and you and I are both in total harmony. The old way of selling doesn't work. Hi, I'm Patricia Fripp. I work with the ABC company. We've been in business for 45 years, and this is what our unique methodology is. And this is who we do business with, and we'd love to do business with you. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
You need to ask questions so you find out what are their interests, challenges, opportunities, and build all you want to say around their concerns.
100%. You're right, because you hit it right on the head. 99% of the salespeople that we train when we go into companies, they're still using, and it's not their fault. They've been trained by their companies. They've been trained by, the gurus, I call them, to use these traditional sales skills that have been rehashed for decades. They're like, oh, I read this book, and I'm like, okay, that book was published in 1929. Like, I hate to say it, but the consumer is completely different than they were 100 years ago. They are different than they were 10 years ago, right? Even 20 years ago, before the rise of the internet and social media, right? They expected to be educated by the salesperson. But now with social media and the internet, they can go to Google. They can just Google your name, your company. They can find all about your company, your price points, who your competitors are, how long you've been in business. They know everything about you by simply doing a Google search on their phone. And because of that newfound power, the consumer of our time, I call that the information age buyer, will no longer be manipulated or pressured by pushy salespeople because they know they have many choices to choose the exact product or service that you're offering. You have to develop the right questions like you did even back in that day before you were in sales. You didn't even know what you were doing, but you're developing those questions that got you all the opportunities, that got you the promotions, that got you in front of the crowds. Without you doing that, we wouldn't even be on this call today.
It's being naturally curious and genuinely interested. My brother always says, I'm not surprised my sister gets paid to tell people what to do. She was a bossy little girl. and he always says, my sister is not backward about being forward. And he'd always say, being British, you ask people personal questions. Yeah. Do you know, nobody, Jeremy, in the years behind the chair and working with clients and going to conferences, no one has ever said, that's none of your damn business. Because if you ask genuinely interested point of view questions.
And they can pick up the difference on that, whether it's a surface question or like more of a question you're really trying to find out if you can actually help them, right? I wanted to ask you this. This was important. What's the process that you go through when you work with a company who wants to improve the sales? Like, what do you go in and do for them to get to them to that level?
Well, because I have been in business for a long time, and I'm a boutique firm, I'm not a large training company. And my first conversation with every prospect, whether it's for executive speech coaching or sales presentations, anything, it's always pretend you already hired me. Yeah. And so I come from the point of view, I do not want to talk anybody into hiring me. You want the best resource, and I only want a client I can absolutely guarantee I'm going to exceed their expectations.
Yeah.
And my process is, one, I want to not talk about what I do as much as show you what I do. So my process, if people are interested in me, and all I do, Jeremy, is help them improve their presentations.
Sure.
I say is, I'm not going to tell you how to get in front of your prospect. I'm not going to tell you how to manage your contact management system or even prospect, although I do help with some sales scripts to get there. But it's when you're in front, be it a webcam or in person, that you will be more powerful, persuasive, and personable than your competition. That's what I do. So if people are genuinely interested and we have a match, I'll say, all right, give me one of your best salespeople. The person that you say, if everyone was as good as John, we would not be talking to someone like you. Because if I can give recommendations on how John's presentation could be better, then we take what John does, the best person you got, with the hypnotized version.
I like it.
Of how do you open, how do you focus on the prospect, how do you use you-focused language, how do you add more specific language, and how do you tell electrifying, happy customer stories. We put that together and say, well, is that what you want all your sales professionals to sound like? Yeah. So then most of my work is before I deliver training.
I see.
And, I'm speaking at, now they're virtual, but worldwide sales meetings. Yeah. So what my process would be, let me talk. Okay, yeah, I'd like your recommendations. So I like to listen and record to the best people in every discipline, whether it's inside sales, whatever. I want to give advice to everybody because they'll all be in the meeting. So I take those and I transcribed what they tell me.
I see.
We record it, I transcribe it, I make suggestions and say, and usually they gasp.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So then we design it together. And then in some cases, for an upcoming worldwide sales meeting, I'm going to take probably 3 of the people and record their before, coach them on the after. Yeah. Now, I'm going to make sure that none is bad, but I say that's professional. You can see why he's the top salesperson. All right. Let's look at the principles you just heard of this. Yeah. All right, John. And that we will pre-record. The rest we will do it live because I don't want John to freeze that there are hundreds of people around the world listening to it. So that we'll record. So I build on what the best people are doing. And I write the scripts and coach them on the new way.
I can see why that works. What would you recommend a sales profession? What do they need to do if they want to be the very best at sales? What's your advice on that?
Well, for me, this is what drives me crazy with many of the companies that I work with, or they don't hire either of us. One, they recruit the best available talent they have. Yeah. They put them through training. They know the products that they sell. They know how the competitors line up. They have all the technical skills and the product knowledge. And then they say, go out and talk to the C-level.
Sure.
And they don't spend any time on what is it you actually say when you get the appointment? And this is where I step in. So from my point of view, one, you and I both agree they don't ask good enough questions. But 2, when they're telling this story, many do not have the right flow of the conversation. For example, for all your listeners, what I recommend you do is whenever you're delivering a presentation, again, it doesn't matter if it's like this, doesn't matter if it's in person, the words are going to be the same.
100%.
if you get to the point where you're presenting to a team or the leadership, first I would say is congratulations. And then you give them an example of what they have a right to be proud of. Your latest advertising campaign is spectacular. Or congratulations, your stock price just went up 2 points, and I noticed your major competitor went down 3. Your strategy's working well. Or some genuine compliment.
Yeah.
Then you never thank people for their time. Everybody thanks them for the time. You say, thank you for the opportunity to discuss how the Fripp presentation skill training might be what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Then, if you're getting to a senior level, chances are other people have been giving you information and you need to make them look like a hero to their bosses. So you say, thank you for John and Mary. They have been very generous with their time and information. Yeah. And they tell me your biggest challenges are, or you're most interested in hearing about, or your goal for this next fiscal year, your goals for the next fiscal year are. Right. And that is how you structure your presentation. Is there any other area you would like to add to our list? Sure. And then you build out, because you're right, Jeremy, in this world, if you get that far, you don't have to tell a lot about, you can say, as you obviously know by our 45 years in business, but you don't tell them we'd have been in business for 45 years because they know that, or you wouldn't get to that part of the process.
Yes. And nobody cares. And that's what I always train salespeople, is that people in our day and age, they don't really just buy from somebody they like. They buy more from people who they feel can get them the best result, period. The person or the company who can solve their problems, period. Not just the person they like. I mean, it's the same thing if your neighbor came over that you're really good friends with and they're pitching some latest, greatest vitamin that they want you to sell. You really like them, but you can be like, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. But let's say you're talking to somebody and you're having challenges and problems and issues, and they're pulling that out by their questionability, and you're really revealing your feelings and your emotions and the root causes of those problems. You're far more likely to buy from a stranger that you feel can get you the result that you want, compared to just your best friend who might do the same thing. People don't buy from people they like. They buy from people they can get them the best result. Consumers have majorly shifted. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with companies in our day. We train some large companies. One of our largest clients is the largest search engine in the world. Everybody probably knows who that company is. We train 4 of their divisions. But when we came into their company, they use their name as like brand awareness, which they have it. So every single sales call, hi, my name is, I'm with XYZ company, and what we do is, and they thought everybody would just want to listen. But 99% was hanging the phone up on them with that product they were trying to sell. And I call salespeople like that because that company spends millions of dollars a year training their sales force, but it's all product and features and benefits. And boy, they knew that product in and out. But it wasn't really making them many sales. And that's a company with one of the largest brands on planet Earth, probably top 5 you would recognize, right? And so I call, most salespeople are what I call product pushers. What do? They ask a few logical-based questions their company or some guru has taught them, and then they're taught to go into their pitch, talking about the features and benefits of how they have the best this and the best that, and we've got the best prices. And that's kind of like taking a bucket of mud, Patricia, and like throwing it up against the wall, like hoping and praying that something we're going to say in that presentation is going to trigger them to magically want to buy from you. And I call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople are on, where they just hope and pray something they're going to say is going to make that person want to buy them. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a living. What I love about yours is in your presentations, they're structured. You're not winging it. Like you're starting here and you're going here, and there's a systematic process that's duplicatable that salespeople can learn that will close way more sales than if they ever try to just go out and wing that. So I love that you do that for sure.
We have to be flexible within a structure.
100%. Yeah. Because not every conversation goes perfect.
Well, no, I wouldn't. It doesn't necessarily go the way you expect. And
Exactly.
you need the flexibility to find. Well, obviously, that is much more important to you than this. So let's switch to that.
Yeah, because you're focused on their problems. So what I find is that most prospects don't even know they have problems, or maybe they know of a little bit of the problem, but they don't know really what's caused the problem. They don't know the root cause of it, right? They don't know how bad the problem really is. So we have to, in our day and age, we train on, you have to become what's called a problem finder and problem solver, because it's not enough in 2020 to just be good at solving problems, because if they don't buy from you, well, you can't solve anything for them, right? You now have to be even better at problem finding. And that means uncovering challenges and problems that your prospect doesn't even know they have. Now, how do you do that? It has to be through your questioning ability. That's the only way you can find out their problems, but more importantly, who's finding out their problems? They are, right? Because if you can't help them uncover their own problems in their mind, it's impossible for them to ever buy from you, so you can actually solve those. And that's what I love about your stuff, is that your questioning ability in the presentation is really helping them see problems or potential consequences of them not doing anything about the problems if they don't do anything about it. And that creates urgency in the sale for that person to move and take action, not need to think about it for a month or come back to me in 6 months. It's a completely different income level you can make as a sales professional. Love it.
One other skill that all great salespeople need to master is the storytelling ability.
Tell us a little bit more about that. That was my next question for you. I know you really specialize in that. Tell us what that means.
There is nothing like a third person endorsement story.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, your situation reminds me very much of Patricia. Your companies are in a similar industry, similar size. So we all need an arsenal and maybe 5 good stories that would match who you are talking to. Mm-hmm. And stories have to be true. They do not have to be 100% accurate. Now, salespeople always laugh at that. And I say, you're not lying. But for example, I remember a friend of mine called and said, Patricia, help. As you know, I'm a great salesperson one-on-one. However, I have the opportunity to deliver a presentation, this convention committee. It's worth $500,000 to us, and I'm nervous. So I said, he said that. Now, I said, imagine when your happy customer first called, if they had said help and could clearly articulate their problem, what would they have said? Now, Jeremy, you already said most people don't know. And this is where what you are doing is taking what might have been 3 months of conversations, an evaluation, and you shrink it to one conversation, help. This is my problem. Right. And it is always delivered in what is now your happy customer, but it was a prospect at that time words. Then you can go through in your words and say, you know, what we did for Patricia is very much what we would do for your company, Jeremy. We did this, this, this. Does that sound like that would make sense for you? It would be a good idea. This, this, this. And if Patricia were here, she would tell you, I would not have believed it possible. Yeah, so you taking your shrinking time to what might be a 3-minute story with a help, what you did, and you'll use the dialogue, use the actual words, because when you're using your happy customers' words, saying, wouldn't have believed it possible, best investment we made last year, it's much better than you saying, that was Patricia's best investment last year. No, use the words of the customers.
Yeah, it's third-party credibility. 100%. You know, we use a lot of that in testimonials as well on our pages and our social media and stuff, and it drives traffic. I can post a third-party testimonial, let's say on my Instagram, and have hundreds of likes. Way more than if I said, oh, my training is so good, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares. But if you focus on like other people you've helped and what their thoughts are, their advice is, it's way powerful, way more persuasive, obviously. Here's what I wanted to ask you, and you've touched a little bit about this. We've kind of went in and out, but more focused on it. What do you think keeps most salespeople from being great? Why are they not to the level they want to be? What do you think keeps them from being that?
Because they're doing superbly well. It's very easy when you get to a certain level, especially if you're doing well, you outsell your competition. It's very easy to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And part of when we are hired by companies, I would say with me, because a lot of my companies say, look, Patricia, we got a lot of people here. They've been working here for 20 years. They don't think they need your training. You know, they're doing pretty well. They don't think any outside person is going to help them. And I say, don't worry. I'm going to help them fall in love with telling their story more. You know, you fall in love with your own content again. And so it's for all of us. We can't get complacent. Yeah. I remember, Jeremy, I built my speaking business before we had social media or email or websites. Yeah. Now, young people say, how did you do it? Well, I built my 100 keynotes a year business before the internet.
And I think that's incredible. I'm trying to, how did she do that?
Well, it's what we all did in those days. I was the first speaker to have a video, a VHS demo. Right. You don't even know what a VHS is.
I know what VHS is. I'm not that young.
No. But the point is, I vividly remember thinking, oh, I'll have to retire. I'll never be able to email. But the point is, you just keep up what's going on. It's just a matter of, if the beginning of my career, I could not imagine having online learning platforms, of having a whole business built around technology. Yeah. Because that was not natural. So for all of us, at any part of our career, it's just a matter of, I'm good. Yeah. But what tiny change could make me better.
Tweaks. And I think a lot of it, Patricia, is just ego. Because I think you're right. You know, you get to a certain level in sales, you're making a certain amount of income. Let's say you're the top salesperson in your whole company. And you're like, I'm the best. There's nothing else I can learn. I remember going through that, probably 12 years ago in my sales career. I was making a lot of money, like 2008, 2009, when the economy collapsed and salespeople's incomes were getting chopped in half. That year, I made $1.3 million in straight commission.
Wow.
That year, the economy fell down. I thought I was like the biggest, baddest dude. How could I learn more? But the thing is, the next couple of years, I just stayed at the same income level. And it took me like 3 years to feel like, man, your ego is really holding you back from learning more. Because I'd see things. I wouldn't read anything. I'm like, I don't need to know anything. Nobody's better than me. But I had to let go of that ego, and my income increased. I started learning. I started studying more and developing the questions and becoming better. And 3 years later, my income doubled selling the same product. And if I hadn't have let go of that ego, and I think that's the biggest thing. So if you're a salesperson, a coach, an executive, and you're in that spot where you're doing really well, learn how to let go of your ego. Learn that you can always learn something from anybody. Somebody that is to your level. I even learned from people who are selling below me. I'd learn a few things they did. And I'm like, I can tweak that and make that even better. And you have to learn, you have to continually train. You see it from sports professionals. Like if you're in the NBA or let's say the WNBA or tennis or whatever, those people don't just stop training. They don't win. Let's say that they don't win Wimbledon. Serena Williams win Wimbledon and like, I'm good. I'm the best ever. I don't need to train anymore. No, they have coaches. They train every day because they know if they don't, they'll never get better and somebody will out-train them. And the same thing is true in sales. And I see that so many times with salespeople. The average salesperson in North America spends less than $100 a year on sales training, and they wonder why they're not wealthy from being a salesperson. So you have to continually train if you want to be the best in your profession. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
There's one other technique that I bet no one's ever said to you. And this is, it comes from my brother,
Yeah.
who is, as I say, a world-class guitarist.
Yeah.
And he started with, he always says, no talent, no sense of rhythm. He is a practiced, rehearsed, brilliant musician.
Yeah.
And whether you are walking on stage as a musician, as a speaker, or as a top salesperson going into a meeting or a virtual meeting, you have it's walking into that meeting or performance with the assumption of innocence within the context of experience. Now, the first time my brother said that, I said, what do you mean by it? So you as a top salesperson, me as a speaker or trainer, a top salesperson walks into a meeting. We are experienced. We've had a lot of ups and downs, but overall, we're very successful.
Sure.
However, this is the first time your foot has stepped on this stage with this audience at this time. You might be playing the same songs, but this is the first time. And if you do not walk into a meeting without thinking, this is brand new, it's a clean slate. I've got years of experience, but that does not mean I'm going to win them over the way I have in the past.
Exactly.
So it's going into every meeting fresh.
Yeah.
Clean slate.
Well, it's being neutral, and it's not acting like you know everything about them. You might know everything about them. Maybe you read an article about the recent merger in the Wall Street Journal, but you don't know how that's affecting them. And you don't know that until you ask the right questions in that conversation in the right time. And maybe there's some pain there with that prospect or that board, but you don't want to act like you know it all, because that's just going to trigger resistance that this person is not really here for us. They're just here to stuff their solution down our throat. And you're going to be competing against that. So what we teach salespeople, typically in traditional selling skills, you're push, push, push. And what does a prospect do? Push, push, push back, right? Stop the push-pull dynamic. You want to learn how to ask the right questions that get them to pull you in, that get them to persuade themselves that what you're offering is going to solve their challenges and their problems. And once you learn those skills, once you learn those questions that get your people to persuade themselves, you don't have to go out and chase people anymore. They chase you because you can't become what they think in their mind as the trusted authority, not just a salesperson who's there trying to sell them something. So you're treated with completely different respect. Here's another question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up. I know you've got some meetings. We're living in a difficult time. Let's be frank about that with everything that's going on. A lot of our listeners are stuck at home right now, and maybe they're doing their presentations on Zoom or whatever they're doing. What advice would you give them? And you've already given so much, but what else?
All right. Well, I either have a 15-second commute downstairs by foot, or I drive to the airport and get on a plane, which has stopped. So now, like everybody else, I am very comfortable. I'm very sympathetic. If you have a small apartment that you're sharing with 3 people you genuinely love, but 24 hours a day, especially if you've got young kids and you're trying to focus, is very difficult. So I'm very, very sympathetic. My best recommendation is look good. The old joke is, you don't have trousers on. Well, you do need to have trousers. You need to look good, because not only does your audience see you, you look at yourself. And if you don't look good, it's going to be depressing.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of knowing, when I walk through this door, and telling your kids and your spouse, when I walk through this door, I'm at work. and focus. My brother tells a wonderful story about a bar mitzvah. Early in his career, he worked in a Jewish hotel in the band, and they used to play bar mitzvahs and weddings. And he said a rabbi was speaking at this bar mitzvah. Yeah. He didn't speak very good English, but he said, when you walk into your shop, say, "Good morning, God."
Right.
And you will have good business.
Sure.
And it's a matter of every morning, I remind myself how lucky I am to love what I do, have an opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And that I am committed to serve my clients and be a good friend.
Yeah.
So it's just, this too will pass. I grew up, Jeremy, hearing stories from my parents about how Winston Churchill would get on the radio and with the power of his words, make people feel committed, even though at night they heard bombs dropping and they would stand in line for an hour to buy an orange. So I've always focused on anything I experience is inconvenient compared to the challenges that my parents faced. We will get through this.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just a matter of focusing on what we can do while we're under some limitations.
100%.
The magic of technology. Can you imagine when I was building my business, if you had to stay home? Well, you had a phone.
Yeah, you would have just called on the phone right now. But with Zoom and technology and social media, you just have to make the shift, right? You just have to make a shift as a salesperson, as a business owner. Patricia, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today. I wish that we could just go on for about another 5 or 6 hours, just go through the rest of the day, because your knowledge is so expansive. I know you just gave us like a little bit, like a little piece of.
Well, you can invite me again.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold you to that. Here's what I want to know, and here's what my listeners are going to want to know. Where can our listeners learn more about you and your training? How can they get involved with you to get those skills to get to that type of level?
Well, one, you have to remember my name, Fripp, Fripp. And if you go to fripp.com, up to the top right of the website is free resources, including articles on the biggest mistakes that salespeople make in their presentation. And when you got five techniques, when you got 5 minutes for a good prospect. So there's a lot of free resource. If you want to click on Fripp VT, which is the virtual training, then you can take a trial, 3 chapters on opening stories and sales. And if you want to talk to me, you'd click on contact and you can call me or send me an email to pfripp@fripp.com. But
I love it.
On my website, there are 1,000 blog posts.
I love it. So I just want to repeat that. That's Fripp, FRIPP.com. Got some resources top right hand corner, and they can also click on, if they want to take your training, go through the course to learn those skills, which, look, if you're listening to this, you want to level up your game and you want to sell more, you invest. You invest in training, you learn more, you sell more, you make more income for your family. So you can go to her site, fripp.com, go up to Fripp VT and enroll in her virtual training course, and you're just going to make more sales. It's a no-brainer. So, Patricia, thanks for being on my show, and I'm going to have you on here again. I'm going to hold you to it.
My pleasure.
I might have to have you come in once we can start flying around. Have you come into the office for an in-person interview? You up for that?
Definitely.
All right, 100%. We will see you soon, everybody. So welcome and thank you so much for being on this show. If you're listening to this, you're driving down the road, just go to fripp.com, get it done, invest in yourself. You're going to make more money. Patricia, well done. We will see you soon.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday every single week at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training, so be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.